And we selected especially for you viewers, and we have a lot of you inside this digital event already, to find some expert that really can help you along and give some insights. I will shortly give an overview of the people that are joining me on this panel discussion. It's Harold Goebel, the CEO of Viastore. We have Erik Bleker, One Piece Flow Project Manager at Kony. We have Kevin Mahler, the CEO of Vacom. Jeroen van den Berg, published author and WMS consultant at GVDB Consulting. And we have Andrei Kazachkov, Head of Warehouse Automation from First Line Software. And these are the experts that will really take you along trying to solve that difficult puzzle. And the first steps that we are going to take are together with Harold Goebel. Harold, you're the first one to open this discussion panel. And as I was told, you have a clear view of trends going on in this difficult puzzle world that we are trying to solve. Can you take us along a little bit in what you see? What are the trends at this moment, talking about WMS, MES, and ERP?
Thank you for the introduction. For me, it's also the first time to be part of such a digital event. So we have to learn how to work with the people on the screens. Yes, I'm, as you mentioned, the CEO of Viastore, but I spent, even before my time at Viastore, a long time in the area of integration of warehouse management and production systems. And I'm looking very closely to the trends, what is going on in the manufacturing industries. And here I have a strong focus on the industries, especially in Germany and Europe. And what you face here, if you look even at these, let's say, mid-sized, mid-range companies, that they still face the challenge that their customer and their markets are still request a higher variation of their products. So it's really going into the direction of batch one production. This leads, let's say, to the real challenge that in the way that your production plant normally cannot grow easily in Europe because your space is restricted. So how you manage a higher variation of products using more different components you need for this production with the same space which you have in the production area and the workplaces. And here the question is how you can really deal with this one. And if you look at, let's say, traditional methods like Kanban always needs more space. So if you come up with more components, you need more space to place this component. So that's not the right way to give an answer to this challenge. The only thing you can do is really to save space is that you do a production order related supply to the production area. But how you can do this? In this case, you must be able to somehow break the border between the classical interlogistics and the production supply. And even some companies, they are different departments, so they do not really work hand in hand. So the challenge is how I can do an integration of my production supply process into the interlogistics. And these companies normally face also challenges because of the historical grown processes. The processes are not transparent. It's not clear how they're really working. They are often very complex because they're grown over years. So it's not easy to streamline then into the right way. So sometimes only a few workers really know how it works. So as there's some knowledge in the head of the workers. And typically it's not really a software-driven process. It's a process driven by Excel sheets, databases, paper. So not an integrated processes supported by our software. And here the question is how you can really optimize these processes and what would be the right challenge. But you have to go to find a solution because the market still requires this higher variation of production. So that's my view what's going on really in the industry.
Well, Harold, being a first timer at a digital event, you really opened up the discussion already. And by telling us about these trends, I would like to go and skip over. And that's what we're going to do. We're going from the one to the one, and we get back later to you, Harold. But Erik Bleker, being a One Piece Flow project manager at Kony, it's more or less up to you. Do you agree? Do you see the same point of view talking about trends? And do you recognize them for this moment of time?
For sure, it's very recognizable what Harold told. Also with the Kanban and the space limitations that we have. Also, the very broad spectrum of end products. So we are running now at 4,500 different end products in Kony with and handle 25,000 different components on a yearly basis. So that's huge numbers because the variation is huge. But and also in addition to that, you have to have speed nowadays. So not only handling it and controlling it, but also the high speed and the high turnover that you have to run. So it's you are in the manufacturing nowadays in a special area that you have to operate. It's for that was also one of the initiatives that we said, well, we really have to do something with this because this is not getting us any further. So we need to have higher speed, better deliveries from the warehouse to the production. It has to be faster. We have to have less work in process over there. So that was really a key thing for us to go ahead. That and it's not only parts. It's also information tooling that you are covering. Every end product will have their own tooling, will have their own space occupation, will have their own logistics also behind it. Information maintenance. It's very broad. That's.
And Eric, we also get back to you later on. But is there one of those challenges in that process of optimizing and trying to really have that increase in efficiency that really stuck with you, that is something you want to share already? What was like the biggest challenge in that process? Can you share that with us?
It's always, but a lot of times it's the change management that you have to do. So you have on one part you have your project and your technical and your software, and on the other side there's the human factor, and the human factor. It's always thing you have to pay attention to and put a lot of energy and effort in.
Thank you. And that's why it's great that we have tens of people joining us. Those are the humans that have to do these difficult processes and find the solution for this triangular puzzle. Jeroen van den Berg, published author and WMS consultant. So as being a consultant at GVDB Consulting, you come up with different companies. So you could more or less tell us, is this what you see meeting up and encountering in your daily work with different companies? Is this the thing that is going on at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I see many companies nowadays making next steps, new steps, getting ready for the future. And the things that Eric mentioned, like increased speed, increased reliability, more efficiency. I see that a lot, but of course, we've been seeing that for a long time already. But recently, I also see more emphasis on agility, on making it possible to do new business models, new way of working. In production, for instance, a shift from make to stock to make to order, and that requires lots and lots of information. And sometimes products can be made up of many different components, and if just one is missing, I cannot supply my product. I cannot produce my product. So the big trend here is digitalization.
Yeah.
All real-time information needs to be in the system, and then I can make my decisions better.
And if you then, because, it's a little bit strange with all those international guests, but we are here in the studio in the Netherlands. So just to try to compare, maybe we can also grab some other countries. But if you compare the situation over here in the Netherlands with that same puzzle all over the world, how is the Netherlands doing? And then trying to compare it with different countries. Can you say something about that?
Okay, I don't want to get mixed up with this international audience, but just, let me be careful. Anyway, I think here in the Netherlands, we're doing pretty well. I've certain maturity scans on my website where people can fill out their practices, etc., and to see scores. And typically the Netherlands is doing pretty well. And in certain aspects at least. And if I compare logistics as we know it here in Holland and compared to other countries, I think our tradition here in Holland is to be traders. So we have to deal with many suppliers, many customers, and we always have to cater to their needs. So we need to be flexible. And for instance, there are also some people from Germany here. Germany has a tradition more in production and large volume production. So they have more control on the supply chain, and they set it up themselves. And typically that doesn't change as much as what we see here. So I think in Holland, we are really good in being flexible and making changes to our logistics.
Thanks for also comparing with Germany, because my next guest is from Germany, and that's Kevin Mahler. He's COO of the German company Wacom. Kevin, you were in the same breakout room as I was, so we had a small introduction first, but just for the other guest, in short terms, what is Wacom about?
Yeah, Wacom is a family-owned company, around 400 employees, so a really mid-sized company here in Germany in the middle. And we are developing and producing components for vacuum applications. So our markets are semiconductor, aerospace, renewable energy, medicine, and so on and so on. And usually our products you are not directly in contact with, but you need them for producing the newest and smallest microchips, also here in the Netherlands. And maybe for all OLED displays in production. What is special? Because we have that situation that we mostly build small batch sizes for our components. We have some standard components where we have maybe around 1,000 pieces and so on. But in the end, we are usually designing and producing completely different products for our customers. Every time a new one. So all the processes in our mechanical production are really often completely different. So it's the same step like before. The new product has to go more and more to a special milling machine, to welding, milling, and so on. So we have a lot of changing in production flow, and there's no possibility to have a chain behind it. So, and in the last years, before we started with our digitalization, we had really no overview about our components. Where are they? We had a lot of missing components, a lot of missing toolings. And we had 2 colleagues who were only occupied with searching parts, toolings, drawings, and so on, with a production about 50 people. So it was really not efficient, and we lost a lot of efficiency at that time and period. So since it's becoming more and more difficult also to get skilled people for the production, it's more hard that people are looking for other parts. So that time we said, okay, we had to change something. We had to find new ways. And Harald already mentioned, so it's really becoming more complex and in ramp-up scenarios to be flexible enough and have no such huge space for Kanban. So at that time, it was really important to change something. And in addition, for us, it was also the plan to make an automation for our transport routes, that the skilled people, the high skilled people are going through the production floor and bringing parts or production orders from one single to another single machinery. So that's why we said, okay, now it's time to make something different.
And then with all the experts of first-line software joining us later on as well, we will talk about that software part. But there was also a remark in one of the first speakers that said it's also very important to get those people in that optimization process. So Kevin, if I can just ask you one more question, you being the COO, how difficult is it in such a process to take all your colleagues along and to really get them inspired to take those next and second and third and fourth step?
That was at the beginning not so easy, that everybody is seeing, okay, how helpful it could be. But in the end, they were really bored about shipping or transporting boxes from one machine to another. And you always have to see, okay, they have to see something special. What is, how can help it them for the future? And now they're really just focusing on their work. They can start with their work. They don't have to search anything. And that's the good thing, that everybody is like the new situation. And by the way, with our robots and transport systems, we made at the beginning of the project, we had a huge company, all the people from the company in our on the production floor, and the robots served them some drinks. So they're really getting in touch with them and had a nice feeling. Okay, they are taking care of us. They are not, they're good for us, or robots and the automation. And was the first step to say, okay, hey, that's not so bad. Let's make something different.
We'll get back to you later for those robots, and thank you for sharing and opening up of also the human part of this process. And that's also a very difficult piece of that triangular puzzle. So maybe it's a quadruple puzzle at this moment. But then going back to Harold, you opened up with an overview of the trends. And we now, by hearing some different expertise and different experts, you can sum it up with that there are a lot of challenges in this process. Can you share some knowledge about the question, how can companies cope with these challenges in this process?
We already heard some comments here that we need a digitalization of the processes to have a transparent view, get the transparent information. And for me, the answer would be quite simple. You need a kind of a smart factory. But what does a smart factory means? It means on one hand that you have if you look at the IT pyramid, you have your ERP system controlling the major processes, controlling also production. And then it's typically connected to an MES system or has MES functions included, which is really responsible for a detailed scheduling for the production and shift planning, these kind of things. And on the other hand, you have a connection or the built-in function for a warehouse management solution. We from ViaStar Software have a WMS called ViaDat, and they are all connected to ERP. So you have a kind of a process orchestration from the ERP system. So they orchestrate or communicate with MES systems, they communicate with the warehouse management system, but typically the information, the level of detail of information is different in an MES warehouse management system or an ERP system. So the ERP knows a little bit about production, but the detailed planning, which worker is working on which workstation at which time, is something you do normally or typically in an MES system. So if you have this orchestration from the ERP, you will not really be able to integrate intralogistic processes with the production process in the way that at the right point in time you get the right material to the machine. So here our idea is why not have a direct communication between an MES system, which knows everything about production, and a warehouse management system. So technical wise, it's quite easy. You need an interface between both systems. But what we learned, especially as we work together with Wacom, the technical definition of the interface is, let's say, from a software perspective, it's an easy one. So the real challenge for us and our software was to cope with all different process variation we saw on the shop floor. And this is something, if you come from the warehouse management, even some of our developers struggle a little bit to understand what can happen. So the technical interface was easy stuff, but now we have to make sure that all the processes which can occur, and I will name some of them really coming up, must be handled in the way that production is still ongoing. For example, you have different quantities coming up. A machine is broken down, so you have stop production, reroute the material, or even clean up the workstation. You have to handle changes in scheduling from MES system because you have all this variation. We learned to handle new products. So even someone decides for this production step, I need another product which was not originally sent over to our warehouse management system. So our ViaDat must be able to have a short-term express order to bring this goods to the work center. And this is for us really a kind of a challenge that you have automated processes which can react on all these exceptions on the shop floor. And exceptions always sound only occurs a few times, but we learned, and I'm looking here to Kevin, yeah, the exceptions are in daily business. So there is no way to do a manual change here. You have to do it all more or less automatically without interaction of human beings to be able to really respond on this changes here. So let's say, to sum it up, the technical interface was not a big deal, but to support all possible processes, for example, also the work in process material, and material ERP is not even knowing, but we have to transport it from one workstation to another. We really enabled in our software ViaDat a lot of functionality to give you the chance to react on this one. We also learned that you need some transparency. It was mentioned, so we have some monitors where you can see how far is my supply of the goods, how are storage space is filled at the workstation? Are we still able to supply more material to this one, or can we do it only, let's say, with sub quantities here, so have a smaller quantity? We will also need to support supermarkets. So sometimes you have to store the material in the supermarket before it goes to the work center. You have to store the work in process material in the supermarket because it needs some time for the next machine. And this is really the variation for us, which makes, let's say, the process integration quite complex. And it only works really with an MES functional, where you are on the detail level on each workstation for the worker and the detailed scheduling, because you have to bring the goods in time to the workstation to support the production in the best way. And perhaps because we are from the ViaStar software and I'm an IT guy, there's also one very important principle which we apply, is I call it always the Highlander principle. This means that for a certain process step, only one of the three systems should be responsible. So it's always clear which process step is handled by the ERP, which is handled by the MES, and which is handled by our Viadat warehouse management system. Why we do this? Because this keeps interfaces simpler. It avoids synchronization of systems, because you have the truth of data always in one system. And also, let's say, looking for errors or information, it's quite clear in which system you have to check for the right information. So again, the Highlander principle, there can only be one who's responsible for a certain process step. And this for us quite important, that we have a clear view. The MES is responsible for production, and our warehouse management system, our Viadat, is really responsible for the inventory and the goods movement. So it's a clear line between both systems. That's something we built in our Viadat to really able to do the transport from our storage areas to the production, within the production levels, and also the finished goods back. And even if we have scrap, we have to go to a clearing station. So all these processes are supported by our Viadat solution.
Wow, thank you for sharing, Harold. And as a host, being a little bit further from the difficult puzzle, I really hear making the existing processes smarter, step by step, and making smart decisions within the triangle puzzle that we are talking about today. But by saying that to make those existing processes smart, this is the moment where I would like to introduce Andrei Kazachkov. He's the head of warehouse automation at First Line Software. Andrei, thank you very much for joining us. By saying this as a host, by trying to get those processes smarter and smarter, can you elaborate a little bit on the importance of software before hardware?
Hello, Shok. Nice to see you. And for the beginning, a few words about First Line Software. We are a custom software developer company. We have an extensive practical experience on IT solutions development, on many industries, many marketing. And we are inside logistics for about 20 years. And of course, we are proud to be in a long-term partnership with ViaStar. And due to this partnership, we have an opportunity to go deeper in the industry, in this segment. And also we are participating in implementation and deployment, and also in development of ViaStar core products, including Viadat. So during these 20 years, we realized the number of different configurations, different integrations with different solutions, different systems, both software, both hardware, and applying different methodologies and approaches to the project development, like Agile, etc. Concerning your question, this is an easy to answer from one side. From the other side, you see that that's a popular belief that a hardware must go before software in implementation. It is easy to understand this approach because hardware costs are much more significantly higher than software costs, and hardware is much less flexible than software. It is very hard to replace the hardware. It's not possible to replace the hardware, but it's more or less easy to customize software. Anyway, we think that that's our opinion. That is a true approach. And our opinion is that software must go first. When you imagine when you are constructing a new entity, like a solution architect, you must think about body, about blood, and about brain. And if hardware is the body, then the software is the brain. And of course, body is very important, but the brain provides intelligence to body. And if we must start from software as a clue to the integration to different solutions, to different systems. And after we are starting to work with software, then we have to go to the hardware. So our approach is first software first, hardware second. And of course, you have to think about processes and data. And I think this will be the next question to me.
Yeah, and we'll get back to you later, indeed, with those second questions. But it's so great to hear those one-liners. So this, for the people that are watching now, please write it down. Software first, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it's all about, to create smarter and trying to be more efficient. Looking at more efficient and the role that software played, Andre, thank you. I would like to go back to Eric Bleker. He's at Kony. Eric, can you tell us a little bit more after Andre just giving that one-liner and also explaining what the role of software should be and could be? Can you explain about the role of software at your company, at Kony, in terms of optimizing the process?
Yes, of course. So I've got a third thing in. So I believe in business process first, because the first step is to get the customer satisfied. So that's always step one, and then we see what business process we have and what to support those processes. And for sure, software it was very important because when you are integrating systems like WMS and the MES and the ERP system, and you want to combine all the information and get it right at the correct time in the correct place, then you need something that is like a conductor to steer everything, and that's, for me, it is the software. So that will say, okay, now there, and it is, we are running now at that high speeds in material supply and information supply and tool supply that it is, you cannot do it anything. So it's pretty important for sure. Also quality wise, with integrating the systems, especially also the information supply to the shop floor, quality issues drop down because you have everything on hand. So it's part of integration will make the software will make a big step in it and will make the difference in it.
And then by putting the business process first, after doing that, you can still put the software first.
No, yeah, of course. Yeah.
So we will agree on that one. And ladies and gentlemen, by having those one-liners and those interesting points of view and sharing these knowledges, please be aware that in the second breakout sessions, you could choose one of these experts to fight about what's first, or to have questions solved and to share knowledge. So please take along your questions or your marks for the last round of breakout rooms. But we're still in this panel discussion. So we would like to go back to Kevin Mahler. He's at Wacom, COO. Kevin, we were now really talking about how to approach that digitization process. How are things running at Wacom at this moment? Can you take us along in the process, and especially at what's going on at this moment?
Yes, of course. Right. At the beginning, when we started with this project, we just wanted to buy a solution. So, however, we found really quickly found out that there was no solution for such a flexible production or a smart factory. So everybody has many ideas and marketing campaigns. What's able with smart factory? What effects you will have? But if you ask them directly how projects you already realized, then we really have seen that there was not yet this best practice. That's why, together with my team, I started to looking for partners who really wanted to realize it, to really make it happen. So, and at that time, I was really happy that we already worked with a Wirestore and also another company for an MES system. And they are really also try to make a connection to each other, to have a partnership together, that they also had a marketing campaign to putting the theory into practice. And so we decided together, let's make it with 3 partners to go in a real possibility on a green field that the theory is going into practice. So in April 2020, after around about 2 years, we linked our systems together, the ERP, the MES, and the WMS systems. So at that time, this was our point of no return, because we have to change in the mechanical production everything. We just couldn't say, let's start with one single process or with a special area in the mechanical production. No, we linked them, and we already know at the time that there is no easy way back. So also a fallback scenario was not so easy to find, and I think it was really not possible at the time. So yes, after a lot of testing time and a lot of time to find out maybe problems, we had to go live, and we also had some troubles, of course, because it was the first time we don't had that experience together. And after about 2 months, we had a little bit of trouble in our production. So, but now, just to give you an overview, very easy. So the ERP hands over the production order to our MES. The MES has a lot of information about the production planning, about the availability of our stuff, about the availability of our machines. And so we have the detailed planning in there. So also now with an automatic planning with an AI in the background, artificial intelligence. And the MES is asking our WMS for the raw material, for the parts, for the tooling. So, and at that time, the WMS is answering, yeah, it's possible. We have it already on stock. No, it will. We don't have the information until now. But if it's on stock, we are able to make a reservation for this special production order in a period determined by us. So we decide, okay, how long we will allow the WMS system to really make a reservation for single parts that nobody else is maybe selling it to a customer that is reserved for this special production order. And through these 2 days before our production really starts, the WMS starts the order picking completely automatically. So the guys in our warehouse system are getting the boxes. They are bringing the parts for the production into a new box, and the WMS is also is making the transport directly to our machine or our supermarket. So in the end, the system is really able, if there is a change for the customer, the completely systems can reorganize our whole facility, our whole production order line, and nobody has to take care. The humans are just going into detail if there are some problems. So our people in planning and in administration are just going into detail if there is a problem and you have to find a solution what the systems are not able to do automatically. So our people are problems, they are just doing that, solution of problems. So now 1 year later, I just have to say it was the best decision we made, because our production is much more faster and efficient. So we were able to increase the output by around about 50% until now with the existing machines and the existing employees. So we don't have so many ramp ups in employees. We try to find somebody, but that's not so easy. So we had a lot of, it's sometimes it looks that the production looks a little bit empty, so that it's really slow everything, but in the end we have more and more output than ever before, and we are faster than ever before. But we are not finished yet, especially in production planning. We can still make really further optimizations to improve the flow, to get more things in. And also with Wirestore, we have still some new developments and points what we just see when we just know right now. This was not able to see before, and we are looking for new products and projects and new ways to take it over to other kind of productions we have here at our facility, especially maybe for our cleaning service.
Thank you, Kevin. And I think it's very honest. You solve the puzzle, but if you solve it, there will be a next puzzle coming up, ladies and gentlemen. We have to be honest. But today you will get the tools and the knowledge for solving the first puzzle. Thank you, Kevin. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for a round of tips. So please grab a pen or a paper or push your rec button, because we will go around the globe again and try to find some golden tips for your production efficiency. So first off, Eric Blaker at Coney. Eric, what would be your number one tip to share with the viewers?
So what I really learned over time, also with this project running, is that take it step by step, really funnel it down to the core, and finish it till the end, and then take the next step into detailing. So take it step by step, bite not more off than you can chew on.
Thank you very much, Eric. And if you have questions later on, ladies and gentlemen, again, Eric will also be one of the speakers in the breakout rooms. You can just talk with him live online. Now going to Jeroen van den Berg. Jeroen, being that author that is specialized as a consultant in WMS, I was wondering, what is your golden tip to share today during this digital event?
Golden tip, yeah. I would like to join in the discussion with you guys, because what's first? Is it hardware first? Is it software first? Is it processors first? I would say it's the customer that comes first, really. And with the customer in mind, my idea would be start with the end in mind. So how can I stay relevant? How can I be competitive in my market? And what should my business look like? That's the end state. So keep that in mind. And then I totally agree with what Eric just said. Hey, go there step by step. And on the way, there will be many things changing, new challenges, etc. And those steps will not be predictable, but just take it step by step. See what's my first step for now, go there, and then the rest will follow later.
Yeah, and then you can fill in your software and your hardware, and yeah, that's the way to approach it. Thank you very much, Jeroen. Going one more time back to Kevin. Kevin, you also have the opportunity to share that golden tip, and if you want to do the battle again from what's first, I'm fine with that. But is there another golden?
Not the same, but yeah, he's completely right. The customers first, and also to keep in mind that logistics and production really has to be together. But in the end, my tip for such a project: don't be afraid, but using agile methods. Because I learned, if you just write something at the beginning down, what you want to have and how it looks like, you will see during the project, during the process, you will. There are so many different things will come up, and if you just say, okay, no, we decided at the beginning of the project how we want to realize it, then I think you will really have it doesn't work. So be agile, use the experience you made during the period, and just reflect and look at the working together and also the things you learned in the period, in the process itself.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. So these are 3 golden tips, and maybe even 4 or 5 if you listened very carefully. I want to go back to Harold, because Harold Goebel, he opened up the discussion by talking about his trends. Well, Harold, again, you could now finish it up by saying, are these golden tips, are those tips where you agree on, and do you have maybe any example coming out of Wacom where you can say, well, this is like the perfect and unique solution?
Okay, so thank you. I like these golden tips, and I also like the discussion. What is first, the business process, the software, or the hardware? For me, I think one of the key findings, and we had it step by step, use agile. These environments and processes are really complex, and that's meaning you do it step by step, do it agile, and do not believe that you can already plan for the process which are relevant in 2 years. You will never make it, because production, customer changes. Here comes customer first. If the customer wants something different, he will change your process. You have no choice. That's why I do it step by step, agile, and always looking what is required. So this is for me really a good discussion, and we can have later on, can see what's first, software, business process, or customers. Maybe it's really iteration, like in agile methods, where you always have to look where to go. And for me now, imagine you have this complexity handled by the software. You're doing most processes automatic. What would be then the best thing to do is you buy hardware. Why you can buy hardware? Because the software controls the processes. most of them are automated and handled automatically. So you can easily handle material transport from automatic warehouse. As we also building these automatic warehouses because we know when we need some certain things. We heard from Kevin that it's hard to get production people doing the logistics. Why not just buying robots who's doing this logistics, transporting this stuff from one place to another one? Because we, from a warehouse management, we are that exactly knows when we have to do the transport. So we can, whether it's doing by human being or robot, use a robot. And even getting one more step, if you have robots, you can think about Tucker trains, which is another option to make it perhaps more efficient. Or we have now also some robots which are in between a Tucker train and a robot with one let's say box, and he's able to transport up to 16 boxes with a certain sequence and doing even optimization in the transport to the different workstation. So for me, business process, customer first, and if you have the software, you can go to the next iteration and doing step by step what could be the possible hardware solutions to do stuff which is not really something you as a customer focus on. It's more something you have to do. Production needs logistics, but it's not your key functions you would like to have. You want to do production. And software enables you to go also the next step into the hardware, and then the next iteration you see what your customer wants to do. So for me, the outcome is if you have the right software, and we now handle for Wacom also robots who are doing the supply to the workstation, from the workstation, that would be really the next steps we go into.
Thank you, Harold. And of course, opening up the discussion, but knowing that First Line Software really puts so much effort in bringing all these expertise and questions together, I would love to go at the end of this panel discussion to Andrei Kazachkov one more time. For the people that didn't remember, he's the head of warehouse automation at First Line Software. Andrei, can you please give your point of view with your expertise, knowing what you can do with the software, to sum this panel discussion more or less up? Can you give us one more overview and your point of view, knowing what First Line Software is all about?
I fully agree with my colleagues. What is the first thing to think about the processes, of course, but I think we forgot about one thing that can be the first. The first is data. You need, if we can have good process, we can have software and hardware, but if we have wrong data at the beginning of a project, we can lose the project itself. So I think the first one thing to think about is to collect, to make an overview of all processes inside the warehouse, to make a correct initial data. Some type of survey or research is required before starting the project. You need the exact information about your throughput processes operation, about your future, some future horizon you need to know, about sizes of areas, about your topology. If you have correct data, this is the first step to the good project, I think. Data first, then processes, then the software that manages the processes, and then the hardware that increases productivity and accuracy. This is my golden tip.
Thank you very much, Andrei. And one of the colleagues of Warehouse Total, she also said, you also have to ask to Andrei, to MES or not to MES? Can you give me that a clear answer on that one?
Oh, I think if we're talking about MES, that's not. You see, of course, in some cases, WMS can expand to some MES functionality. We have some cases in our portfolio, but I think professional MES is, of course, the thing that must be work in conjunction with WMS.
Well, again, thank you very much. And on behalf of also all the viewers, thank you for opening up and creating this digital event.